So what we're going to be dealing with this evening is the Data Matricula database, how to access it, and then a little bit about the status Animarum. I had sent you a couple of documents a few days ago that spoke to this a little bit, but we'll go into a little more of a depth, a little more depth right now. For those of you who don't know, Slovenia has 8 regions, and I can tell you that most of you who are coming with us on this trip, you're all going to be from this area down in here, and some in here, and some in here, but mostly you're in what we would call the Ljubljana archive area. And that would be all the way up to the Austrian border, all the way down to the Croatian border. We have a couple of you going to be in the Primorska area, with the Koper being your archive. We have nobody this year in the Maribor archive area, which is this huge area over here, all the way to Hungary and Croatia and Austria on this end. So you need to know that, because in order to get into the right record that you want to find for your family, you have to know what archive they're in. And I sent you that today. Did you all get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The information about what archive you're in, and what diocese you're in, and whether or not there's a status Animarum for that area. So we'll go on to the next slide. Okay. In order to get into the database, the Matricula database, you must have the surname.
I made you. Thank you.
Over here, and then the first name. Very seldom will you have a middle initial, but just in case, you can use that also. You need the birth date, which would be the month, the day, and the year of the person. Whoops-a-daisy, I did something wrong there. Okay. You need to know where they were born. You need to know the diocese they're in and the archive that they're in. So that was all on your information that I sent you today, but we didn't take all of the people that you had on your pedigree chart, but just some of them. And the idea behind all of this is that you get to know how to access, not necessarily how to access, because you're going to access it differently at the archives. Most of you will be in Ljubljana. Will be 10 to 12 computers that we can take you at a time over there to work, but they have their own way of getting you into the system. But they will show you how to do that. They will be there to help you, especially if you're into the records that go into the German language. And I think I've mentioned this to you before, but there are those 3 languages that we're dealing with well, actually 5, but mainly Latin, German, and Slovenian. And if you're from either side of Slovenia, where some of you are from the Italian side, your records could actually be in Italian. And on the other side, they can be in Hungarian. So it's not that you need to know the language, but you at least have to know especially what the columns transfer to, and we'll get into that a little later. Okay, so the 4 things you need: the surname, the birth, the location, and the diocese. And with the diocese, you'll know the archive, or vice versa. What else do you need to know? Well, there are certain things in the Slovenian language that you have no idea as an American what they're talking about. So we're going to talk a little bit about the spelling, the alphabet, a little bit about the geography, and a little bit about the history of Slovenia, so that you understand what you're looking at. On given names, if your relative's name in America ended up being John, in the records, it could be Johann, that way, Janus, Giovanni. You say Giovanni, that's Italian. That's because we were under the lower part of from the middle and south of Ljubljana. That whole area was under the Italian control after the First World War up until 1943. So they were ordered especially when they had children, to name their children in the Italian way. Everything had to be Italian. And we'll have people come into our office and say, I know I'm Slovenian, but no, it says here that we're Italian. What does that mean? And that's the reason why. So you have to know a little bit of the history. The same thing is true on the Hungarian side too. If your relative is Joan or Jean, it could be in Slovenian Ivana, Ivanka, or Giovanna would be the Italian way. If his name was Frank, it could be Franz or Franz or Francesic. Anytime you see this S-I-C-E-K on a person's name, it means little Frank. That was my dad's name. And I said, that's not his name. We never heard that before. But his actual name is Francesic. Agnes translates to Nasia, and that translates a lot. A lot of women have chosen the Nasia over the Agnes, or it could be Neshka. Mary could be Maria, Mariana, Mitza, Mitzi. Joseph could be Joseph, J-O-S-E-F, or J-O-S-E-P, or Giuseppe. But don't be concerned that the name isn't spelled the way that you're accustomed to here in this country. Okay. The Slovenian language has 25 letters versus our 26 letters, and they are I think they would be called the Roman letters. But in Slovenian, they have eliminated the Q, the W, the X, and there's another one over here, the Y, I think it should be. These lips shouldn't be here probably. That's it. Okay. Okay. The Q, the W, the X, and the Y. But they've added 3. So they have another C, they have another S. I'm pointing to it and I'm thinking that you're seeing that. And another Z. But it's like when we say R, A, B, C, D, E, they say A, B, S, Ch. Those are the 2 C's, the S and the Ch. So they're absolutely separate letters of their alphabet. And that's important because if you have especially the name that begins with either the C, the S, or the Z, and you look under the plain C, S, or Z for that name, you may not find it. You have to go to the separate alphabetic listing for the ones with the, I call them a hat check or a črka. In Slovenian, they're really called a strežica. The C is, the regular C is pronounced S, and Sena, and Ch, like it should be church, well, or chudo, okay. Yeah. The S is sounded like S, or Sh, or Sa in this case. It's long there. And the Sh is the shush in school.
Hello, we can't talk. We're on
The Z is Za and Zora, Ja and Jena. So know that there is a difference in the alphabet and be aware of those 3 letters especially. Important. Okay. Did somebody else just join?
What you said?
No. Okay. Okay. Now, another thing too, and I don't think we've talked about this, is how abbreviated dates are recorded. In genealogy, you're going to have to be recording a lot of dates. When you're reading dates in Slovenia or in Slovenian, the day comes first, the 24th of June. Yeah, the 24th of June, 1886.
For our trip next month for Slovenia.
In America, we say June 24th, 1886. The problem is, in a date like January 1, 1886, we would say January 1, 9, 1886, but you will find it in the Slovenian records as 9, 1, 1886. I would suggest very strongly that you choose one method of doing all of your dates in genealogy so you don't make the mistake that this could become. And my suggestion would be that you put the day first and then actually write out 3 letters of the alphabet of that month and then the year. I think you would be a lot better off doing it that way. Town and village name problems. In this case, the word is spodnia bella, or it could be spodnie građišće, or spodnie kot. This would be considered the feminine version of it. This would be the masculine. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong thing again. Sorry about that. And this would be the neuter part. So you can have the same, looks like the same spelling, but you've got to be careful of the ending of each of those. The same with Zagorny Polskawa, Zagorny Poljane, and Zagorny Polsnik. Veliki Bella, Velike, Bloke, Lediki, Borscht, Veliko, Borda. And I don't know why these two would both be considered neutral, but maybe because the O is there, they use the O because it's the what was it, the neuter. Both could be used for that. Okay. In looking for your village names, Slovenia is like any other country. There are 21 villages with the name of Kal, 30 with the name of Laje, 60 with the name of Svete Maria, and so forth down the line. So in your instances, you're going to be able to know what these are because we pretty much figured them all out for you. But in the future, know that when you're looking for a town, and it's one of these that have a lot of them in the town. It's like having Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland, Tennessee, Cleveland, Florida. And it's the same way here, but you have to figure out which one is the one that your family is from. Okay, now in the data matricula, everything is entered in chronological order via columns. Those will be the records that you're dealing with mostly. But you will also have records that are written in a paragraph form in Latin, all in Latin. And we're going to help you there with all of this, so I'll save that for a little bit later. Birth records are called Kronička Knjiga, and that's birth. That means birth in Slovene. This means birth in German. Then they also are listed as Krishna Knjiga as an index. It's a good thing when you go into any book to look at the, in fact, in this book here, where it just lists people's names in chronological order, they oftentimes have an index at the end of the book where the priest has gone and put everybody's name by the year they were born, and then the page number where to go to in that book. Another book is a death book, and I don't know why they put birth, death, and marriage. It sort of makes me chuckle there. But the death book is the next thing that's listed in the drop-down list, and it's the Merliska, and again, the German name for it. And then the marriage book is a Porochna Knjiga. And those would be, if you're looking for the birth records, they're here. If you're looking for death records, they're here. If they're looking for marriage records, they're at that point. Now, the website accessing the data matricula database. I sent you the form today with a little bit longer directions, but this would be my shortcut way of telling you how to do it without having to be afraid to go into it. You key in the data matricula -online EU English, EN for English, and Slovenia with the slash. Then on the screen, it will come up to the 3 different archives, and you would choose Ljubljana in this case. You could choose Maribor or Koper, but again, nobody from Maribor, and the people from Koper, I'm not sure if there may be 2 of you who might be able to see their records online. All of the records for Ljubljana and Maribor are online, but the records for Koper only have the diocese for A through M. So if yours doesn't fall into that category, then you have to write to the archives in Coper. You choose the birth register, name the Kaniga by clicking on the camera on the left of the screen. And you determine the page on the right-hand side of the screen are the page numbers from 1 till the end of the number of pages. Follow the directions on the sheet to find the possible locations. Don't make the mistake of going down page by page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you know that if the records were from, say, 1840 to 1850, and you're looking for 1848, you wouldn't start with page 1 on that first line of the screen. And then the next thing would be that you would check the columnar headings to translate the data. If the screen freezes, X out, then re-click the camera icon for the register you had open. Go to the page where you were before the screen froze, if you can remember it. For whatever reason, at least for me, the screen changes freezes quite often. So it's just better to X out of it and go back into it. Sometimes when you go into a birth record right at the beginning, it will say they can't find it. Just X out and do it again, and it will go, you'll be able to find it then. These are rulers that Lori had made up a few years ago that tell you the columnar headings for each of the columns for the birth record. But it's a birth record that's in the Slovene language. You can pretty well rest assured, whether it's Slovene, whether it's German, or whether it's Latin, you're going to have the same translations as this: the date of birth, the date of baptism, the village, town, the house number. And always make sure that you pay attention to the house number, because that can help you if you have to find a family by going backwards and forwards in these books. By the way, also, the way that children were born in Slovenia was almost every 2 years. So you can go ahead 2 years, you can go back 2 years, and it's a lot easier to look for a house number than it is to try to find like the name of the people. Can you go back and explain that the Župnija is not always the village name? Oh, the Župnija.
Back on the slide.
Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, use the Župnija, the diocese. The church is organized just like our civil authorities are here and in Slovenia too. Here, like in Cleveland, or the church here in Cleveland would be called the Catholic Church of Parish, or the cathedral in this case. But the whole area around Cleveland is called the diocese. The same thing is true in Slovenia. The little villages are part of a larger group, and that larger group is called the Župnija, or the diocese. They also call it a parish, but I tend to stay away from the word parish because my connotation of that word is the church. They like St. Rose Parish is, to me, is my hometown church. It's not the diocese. So that's why. Does that explain whoever asked the question? Okay, that was Lori.
Randy?
Yes, yes. I asked the questions because you kind of skipped through it before. And
Okay.
when you go to look up where your village is and you have to put the diocese in or the Župnija in, it's a little difficult. So thank you for going back. And it looks like Randy asked a question too about the house numbers.
Okay, the house numbers, explain how house numbers changed after World War II. Okay, the government in 1954 decided to update all the house numbers in Slovenia, every village, every town. What they didn't do was make a record of the old one versus the new one. Some of the churches did do that. And those of you who are down in the area around Cerknica, we have a book that does have all of those new numbers. But that's about the only one that we're able to help in that area. So when your driver translator takes you out to the village, or if you go to the village and you have just the old house number, you're going to have to probably stop and talk to somebody who's out walking or mowing their lawn or doing their garden, whatever, and asking them if they know. And if you want to go to whatever house is marked, say it's 14, and today's the newest is it's 14, you go to 14, you might go there anyhow and say, do you know what the old house number was? Another thing with house numbers too, so that you know, in America, we have streets, and everything on those streets or whatever, they're all in a chronological order. But in Slovenia, you have to remember that they started building houses a long time ago. So house number 1 would be wherever that house was built, could be down in the valley. House number 2 might have been built up on a hill someplace, but that's house number 2. And 3 could be any, you know what I'm saying? They're wherever the house was built, it was numbered the next number that became available. It was not in any order. Does that answer your question? No, the post office does not know the new numbers. They know the new numbers if you go there and ask. And maybe some of them might have the old numbers, but generally they don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Anything else on house numbers? Okay, good. So getting back to the records now. If you see that your columnar headings are Latin, we also have a Latin birth record. And we have one for the German and one for the Slovene. And that's in the birth, marriage, and death record. So we'll be giving you, what are there, Lori, like 12 different rulers when you're at the archives, so that you will be able to see the translation of every one of the columns that you have. So that shouldn't be a problem for you. Any problems there? Any questions? Okay. So in the birth column, you have the birth, the date of birth, the baptism, and that's something to address too. Some of our people, instead of giving their actual birth date as their birth date, they use their baptismal date. It happened to Lori and me with my paternal grandmother. And it ended up that my paternal grandmother and my daughter were born on the same day. So Lori and both on September 4th. But on my grandma's tombstone, it says September 8th. Then the village. And then the house number. Again, very important to know the house number. And I'll talk to that when we get to status animarum. The given name of the child. And then you check the next 3 for Catholic, non-Catholic, the gender, and whether they're legitimate or illegitimate. You will always find that with the illegitimate child, that only the mother's name is when it calls for the father's name and the property owned. And did I forget something? Oh, the godparents' names, the mother's name. I forgot the mother's name. But anyhow, they always took the mother's name as their surname. However, sometimes in that block, you will find handwritten notes that will say, I, Jože Steber, am the legitimate father of this child, so-and-so. So that made that child become legitimate at that point. So when you find that, you ask at the archives for them to translate that for you. Then you'll find it should be the name of the mother and her information, and then the godparents' names, the midwife's name, and then the priest's name on the birth records. The death records, I'll just go down the date of death, the burial, the location where the deceased lived, the house number, the ownership, religion, gender, the age of the deceased, and the cause of death. And that one, you have to almost ask every time because you can't read it. And then even if you could read it, you wouldn't know what it said. So don't be afraid to ask the people at the archives what the translations of the things are. Okay, and the next one would be the marriage column. Now look at this, 19 different things they ask for here. But again, you will have rulers that will show you all of these items in the columnar headings. Anything that's a little different here, the religion, the name, the occupation, it's about the same thing, the names of the godparents, etc., and notes by the priest. So you have the three official by both the Catholic Church and the civil authorities in Slovenia of the correct dates. Now, many of you, not many, but more than half of you, when you sent your stuff into us, the pedigree chart, some of the dates were incorrect, but we fixed that for you. So if you see that they're different on your papers from what you gave us and what we'll be giving you when you get to Slovenia, that will be the reason why. Okay, the Status Animarum. That's a book that's available only at the archives. It is not online, and it is not available at for every parish or for every diocese. For those of you who are lucky enough to see yes in that column on the form that I sent you today, you can cry hallelujah, because you'll be very happy, because the thing for I can't see the top of this. In the Status Animarum, the information is,
I can't.
you can't, up across the top, you'll see, it's very hard to see, but you'll see the written word Breg, and then you see another underneath it, it says Ver, VRH. That's the area, Breg, the area, and then the village name is Ver. On the right-hand side would be where the family name is, and then the house number. So in this particular book, everything is filed by the house number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And what it can tell you is this one here, I'm sorry, who was born in the house, what they owned as far as the property, the date they were born, whether or not they were confirmed, had their first communion, that sort of thing, when they got married, the date when they married, the date when they died. And then over here is just the yearly checkup, like a census. Did they go to communion at Passover time? Did they still believe more or less in the word of God, and how are their morals for the year? So they wrote that. And then over in this would be just the notes. But what's important here is the husband and the wife. And if she's not from that same village, this is where she's from in this area here. And it also gives the house number. And most times you will find that they were from a village very close by. And when they have the F here, that means field. And that would be the boys that are born, in this case, Franciscus, Johannes, and then they were baptized. When you see this little thing, it means they passed away. And I don't know why the line is through there. It isn't because they aren't, I think they're still living. Let's see, yes, because they were married, and then so forth down the line. And you'll see here that it starts out in 1836, and then they had these children. And they don't put the 1 before the 1836. They just put 836 or 26, whatever that is. And 846 would be 1846, and so forth down. But by the time you get down here, you have other people marrying and they're living in the same house and having children, because you're going to 1881, 1883, and so forth down as far as 1891. So these were probably the children of whoever they got married in this area here. Here's 2 of them that got married. So the important thing here is the fact that everything's on one page. The parents, the children, the marriages, the deaths, second marriages, whatever. If they went to the service, it can span generations. And the first thing you ask for, if and when you go to the archives, and if your sheet that we gave you says yes, that they do have a status animarum, that's what you want to look at first. It'll save you oodles of time if you're looking for it.
I didn't figure so.
Okay, I am curious when the church stopped collecting all these data. I don't know that. I don't know that. I know that the records have to be 100 years old before they are given to what's called an administrative unit in the Catholic Church. And I don't know what they do with them. And then they're given to the archives after that. But I don't know about when they stopped or if they even stopped. I don't know that. We can ask that when we get there. Okay? Okay, on the status animarum, you have, when you open the book, you have two sides of the page on the left and the page on the right. In most status animarums, the page on the left is a separate page from the one on the right. In other words, they don't go across. They don't consume the whole page for one record. So be aware of that. Some of the status animarums do their what do you want to say, recordings by the towns. So they'll take one village and they'll do all of the information in that village, and then they have another pages for another village. Other villages combine it all together. You can purchase a digital copy of the page, or you can have a family history. The digital copy is like €2, but the family history is 15 euros. You can order these at the archives and they can send them to you. When they get them done, you can pay for them in euros when you're there. Unfortunately, no, not every parish has a status animarum. It's not that they don't have them. Some of them won't relinquish them, number one. Some of the priests won't give them to the central archives. But a lot of them were damaged with all the wars and everything that came through the area. So again, they're always interested in the land owned. And that's always underneath the father's name, the groom's name. It'll say 1/4, 1/2, 1/3, 1. And the word after it can be Zemlach or what's the other one? Zemlach or Hubler. A half of it is equal to about 5.5 acres of American land. But don't expect this to be like a farm. You'll have, in our case, we had 13 different parcels all over the area that probably was equivalent to 5.5 acres. But everyone had at least some part of the woodland so that they would have fuel for the winter and so forth on down the line there. So this is what I had to offer you tonight.